We are so honored to bring together two incredible leaders making enterprise transformation happen. Ulf, you're one of the founders of 5G, a leading force in AI RAN Innovation Center, and now at the forefront of this revolution in T-Mobile. Pranay, you founded Fractal Analytics 25 years ago, which is now a globally recognized AI company with the vision to power every human decision in the enterprise with AI engineering and design, and is a trusted partner to some of the most admired Fortune 500 companies. It's a privilege to have you both here. And many organizations, and especially the ones who are listening in today, are feeling the urgency of being at the start of this new era. And starting on the topic of just opportunities and challenges in the sector, I'll hand it off to you, Pranay.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Vanessa and Ulf. It's a real honor speaking with you.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you, Pranay. Likewise.
excellent. So let me kick it off, right? And would love your perspective on what you see as the most exciting opportunities today in telecom, and then equally what you see are some of the biggest challenges in the telecom industry.
Wow, that's a super big question. I will try to narrow it down a bit and then maybe go wide again. But really, I've been in telecom for about 35 years. So I think I've seen everything from the deregulation of these post and telecom companies that, were providing everybody with a state-owned utility into something that became a private sector success, very much driven by the mobile phone and how the mobile phone has changed people's lives.
Yeah.
It's surprising, though, when thinking about this, how it went private and how it grew to these incredible levels. I mean, we're up to fifth generation mobile technology today, and it's surprising how slow the digitalization of telcos has become. If you compare it to anything else, if you compare it to airlines or hotels, you check in online, you do all the things. You still, in many cases, have to go to a store to visit a telecom company to get things done. Or to change something, or to add something, or ask for extra services. So I think if you ask me, the biggest challenges and opportunities for the telecom sector is to go much faster and deeper on digitalization. Now, that has been in the works for a while. I mean, digital has been a 10-year journey that, or at least, that people have talked about in all kinds of sectors as they are transforming and doing things. Now, you are the expert, but I'll tell you, AI is that catalyst that makes it powerful enough to really transform telcos as well. And why is a simple reason. Telcos are buried in data. If anything that telco companies has more than any company on the planet, it's data. And the data comes from all the transactions because it's a transactional business model.
Yeah.
And a transactional business model as a bank or anything that does large number of transactions, there are very few companies on this planet that makes more transactions than telecom companies. And therefore, AI is both the opportunity and the challenge for telcos as they go digital now in a much more focused sense than they have done before. I don't know if that's an answer, but it's kind of a quick answer to your very open question.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thank you very much. So, I think you summarized it at the end, and you're saying that really AI is both the opportunity and the challenge. And it's very interesting because not only is it a big opportunity in terms of how the telecom companies run and operate and create more value for their customers, but it is also the telecom industry is also one of the catalysts for the AI revolution across multiple industries. So that in itself is, very fascinating. Now, and you spoke about faster and deeper digitization, right? And what areas would you speak about that? Would you say more from the standpoint of customer engagement and customer experience? Would you talk about that more from the standpoint of networks? Would you talk about that more from the standpoint of what you call your OSS, right? Operations service systems, right? Or BSS or network. Where do you think that the need and the opportunity is the highest?
So, first of all, I love your comment, Pranay, that you said that we're both the problem and the solution to AI, because we are. It's a very well pointed thing. I mean, everybody now talks about connectivity and mobile phones play a role that they will play when AI is proliferating and going through our society as a tidal wave. we already can see it. I mean, the mobile version of ChatGPT is the most used. So I think we can already see it, and we can also see that that's starting to transform how connectivity needs to be done. Now, inside our company, as you talked about before, it's also a rationalization potential, or a potential of doing things more effectively or better. I would say the most important aspect of the whole AI revolution, and this is very few operators who understand, but it's to understand that number one is not to look for rationalization. Number one is to look for customer experience and make it better.
Yeah.
Because if you do that, the other part will come with it. The idea is to really put AI in front of improving the customer experience. And there are so many ways you can do it, because AI, as we all know, is pattern trained, and if anything we have is a lot of patterns. Any operator of any scale in any country on the planet has patterns of 1/3 or 1/4 of the population, because it's a fairly oligopolistic industry with 3-4 players per country. But that means that you have a massive, in every country, and you have a massive amount of patterns to draw from that you can train on AI models to become much more customer-centric and customer-focused in your approach. And that means, I think, that the whole business model for operators over time will transform, because this opportunity is different from a rule-based system. I mean, we all know that AI revolution is about leaving rule-based and going into non-rule-based or intelligence-based ecosystems. And that's where the biggest opportunity is. If we do that right, the processes that you talked about, the BSS process or OSS process, those are, for those listeners who don't know these acronyms, it really stands for processes for operations, processes for billing and charging, and making sure that what we deliver to customers is being handled in the right way. Those processes can be absolutely changed by using the AI technology. That also means that operators, in a way, is changing from the traditional telecom way of doing things into a much more IT or tech-based way. So we sometimes call it from telco to TechCo, but it's really gonna roll around the world. And my company that I work for, T-Mobile, is very, very far down that road. Now, there are many operators all over the world eyeing it, but unfortunately, many of them come into this from the aspect of how can I save money by using AI? How can I reduce my costs? And misunderstanding that for a priority rather than use it for focus on customers and take the buy effect, which is really that your cost will go down dramatically. So, that's what would be mine.
I think that's a great point. That's a great point. Which is that, focus on the customer experience, improving the quality of their experience, the quality of the goods and services, and then everything else follows from that. Now, my understanding, and please tell me if this is right or not, which is that my understanding is that in a market like the US, growth now is not a function of increasing the subscriber base, because we are very well penetrated, and therefore the growth from subscriber base is pretty low, and therefore really it's you have to maintain share, you have to do good retention, which really means that customer experience becomes primary. First of all, is that a sort of accurate understanding of the market? And then the second is the growth going to be a lot more through expansion of consumption and services?
Right. I will not answer on behalf of T-Mobile. I would just make general industrial comments on that one.
Industry statements.
Yeah, and I would say that that's partly true, but I don't think of any. If you take the car companies, for example, automotive, you would say that the market is penetrated. I mean, everybody has a car, right? But innovation is still there to create new products that can steal from others. So, and I would say that any industry that has a lot of innovation going on the product side has huge opportunities when it comes to stealing from others. What I think is that the telco sector has been fairly stagnated in innovation for a pretty long time when it comes to using, for example, understanding of customers better. I mean, both you and I get irritated when we come to a hotel and they say to us, you know, have you stayed here before? Like, oh, don't you know that? And I think customers are growing, you know, very quickly impatient with companies who don't know them. If you come to the grocery store and they should know what your typical buying behaviors are, what you're looking for, and AI will enable all that. The grocery stores that takes advantage of it will win. And the same is for the telcos, right? If we know exactly, we don't have to ask people for, you know, what's your social security number for the fifth time, or you know, can you give me your ID? I mean, the iPhone that you have or the smartphone, Android or Apple would know that who you are because there is a face recognition thing on it, by the way. So, you know, you wouldn't have to check in anywhere. I start to be irritated when I have to check in. Please write down your name and address. Are you kidding me? I mean, this, you know me. I've just bought this appointment with you. How come, you know, even doctor's office or whatever it is. And we're quickly moving into that world where people are expecting to be known. And back to your point, Pranay, we sit in the telecom sector on the golden egg of binding all that together, because people pay us almost to do that. They pay us to authenticate communication. They pay us to authenticate communication that is real time on a device that they buy. And you know, doing that gives us the opportunity to, in a secure and trusted way, which is what people also believe. You ask people if they trust telco, they do. They do trust that, you know, it's a private world. They trust all of it. And if you put that together with the ability to serve customers in a new way in every industry out there, we sit on that opportunity in the telco side.
So, in that context, could you tell us a little bit about Intent CX? I believe that's something that T-Mobile is working on and launching now. So maybe a few words
I mean,
about that.
TenCX is what we launched at our Capital Markets Day last year in September, which was fantastic. We talked a lot about from Telco to TechCo in that meeting. We talked about new ways of building our radio access network using AI with AI RAN, and we had NVIDIA on stage with Jensen Huang, and who I known for years, and he, you know, they do great stuff. And Sam Altman was there from OpenAI, and we created a partnerships which is really based on figuring out next best action using AI and the data in any interaction with T-Mobile. So that's what Intent CX is about. Now I will say that these opportunities are there for any operator out there. Well, the LLMs in themselves creates a new possibility to understand language and to. But is it all about building a better robotic experience? Oh, I'm not sure. You know, that's part of it. But you also want to have humans in the loop, and you can combine those things in tremendous way. T-Mobile is supercharging its customer care with problem solving and all kinds of solutions based on AI, which is using this type of technology already. Which means that even when you call in, they know, instead of going, and who are you again? And what was your experience? They know. I mean, we know, any operator knows where, if you've had a drop call in the last 2 weeks. They know if you fell out of the network in the last 2 days. And, you know, I hate to say it, but they know actually where you've been. You know, they know that you went hiking in a national park and you had a bad experience, which you won't have if you have a satellite connection, for example. And did that work, and how well did that work? Maybe it's something to offer. So I think the whole Intent CX thing is based on being much more accurate in our customer interaction.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic, right? I think the multiple points of interaction or engagement, whether that is at the contact center or with the digital, chat agent, it may be even on the service side, right? Which is, as an example, some of the work that we are doing in this area, where at a modem by modem level, pretty much every day, you can predict what is the likelihood of there being an outage in the next 24 hours, and is that issue at the point of delivery at the home, or is it further upstream, right? And then you,
Right.
depending on that, roll out the field trucks in the right manner for better customer experience, and because of that, by the way, lower cost as well.
Yeah. No, and those things were things that I did when I was running the operations in T-Mobile. I implemented technologies like that. So
Yeah.
predicting every radio's exact lifetime, predicting
Mhm.
every tower's exact operations.
Yeah.
We use this a lot when, especially when there are, you might not know, but especially when there are surprising events.
Yeah.
So there are, AI actually operates really well. So
Yeah.
because you can train it on sort of multiple surprising events. So hurricanes is a good example in Florida,
Yeah.
where we're
Yeah.
using AI models to predict the exact storm paths, but also which towers would be holding up longer than others, how we can move traffic between the towers
Yeah.
using that knowledge, and
Mhm.
how we can up tilt and down tilt antennas to increase reach, or down tilt to decrease reach and reduce interference, as we talk about in the radio space.
Yeah.
All these things could be done by predictive algorithms in the old way with rules,
Yeah.
but very hard to predict. It's like writing an algorithm for football or something. You will get some of it right, but a lot of it will also be wrong. But here
Yeah.
is where AI is so good, because you can just feed it in tons of data and it can actually self-learn while you're doing it. So
Yeah.
we're using AI algorithms for doing some of that stuff. But that's
So
an example of what you said. But
yes, absolutely.
operators worldwide are looking more and more into this. But this also comes with a high level of automation, and that's where the cost component goes out. You don't need a bunch of engineers to figure this out anymore.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So in that context, you spoke about surprising events and how do you prepare for that. Can you tell us a little bit about, self-optimizing networks and the use of AI in
Right.
that?
So that has been a vision for a long time. So
Yeah,
self-organizing networks, as they was called, self-organizing networks from the beginning. I think it's should I remember back in my telco history here, but I think it's like 15 years, 20 years old in terms of
yeah,
ideas.
yeah,
SON, as it's called then, right? So,
yes, yeah,
so there were SON modules introduced by operators, by vendors and etc., who has gone, but it's all been built during the time, mostly on rule-based algorithms. So you create rules. And the
yeah,
whole operations, if you look at the overarching operations of any large telco in the world, or small, is based on rule-based. It's all rule-based. The fun part with this comes now when the revolution happens. Now, if you build a very strong data layer on top of your network instead of going rule-based, instead of using these modules that I talked about from all these vendors and stuff, you build a data layer. And then you expose APIs that can make network adjustments of all different kinds, antenna tilts or traffic rerouting or whatever it may be.
yeah.
And then
Dynamic slicing.
and then you let your AI software go loose on that data and
Yeah,
optimizing it for customer experience, for example, which is a good idea. And then you can let it also adjust network and measure outcomes.
yeah,
Those things are starting to happen, and that is what self-organizing networks will be about in the future.
yeah,
Now, in the sixth generation, um, uh, the sixth generation standardization, among others from TM Forum and other standard bodies. Now this gets a bit technical, but there is a very strong vision of self-organizing networks, which means now the O has changed meaning again. If
yeah.
anything, you will get tired in the telco sector of all acronyms because it's engineering based and therefore it's acronym heavy. But it really means that the network in itself can be run without people. So
Mhm.
it's like, if you will, the autopilot, what the autopilot did for the airline industry, where And it's funny though, if you make the analogy to that, when they introduced the autopilots, the pilots said, "No, no, this is scary stuff. You never know. You always need a human." Today, it's the other way around. You fly using autopilot. You can even start and land using autopilot, and then you can overview it and do adjustments to the autopilot. That's the way. If you make that analogy, that's the way that telecom networks will be run in the future.
Excellent, excellent. Now this is very exciting, very interesting, right? Fascinating. Now we're all, at different speeds, different levels. People all recognize this as the future, and they're heading towards that. As you are making the transition and trying to bring in faster digitization, more AI into your organization, what are some of the, I would say, organizational challenges, organizational principles, and people-related principles that you are deploying to enable this?
Again, I will not make comments on T-Mobile, but in general,
Yeah,
I'm also working with many other telcos in the world.
yeah,
So
please.
already, so I see the typical challenges that telcos face. First of all, many organizations are very large.
Mhm.
It's a lot of traditional engineering skills. Radio engineering, for example, is very heavy because it's mobile based and so on. A lot of that has to be transformed in a way that you would be able to trust an automized world much more than a people-oriented world. Now, saying that again, it's skills. It's skills. It's really about finding talent that is capable of doing those transformations. The telco industry in general has an aging problem too. If you remember the history, we started there in this little discussion, you and I, Pranay, and that's in the 90s, this was an industry that was becoming deregulated.
Yeah,
And the mobile explosion happened in a couple of waves. One was the digital phones, which came between sort of beginning of the 90s and beginning of the 2000s.
yeah,
That was in itself a revolution because the whole thing became digital. It went from
yeah,
an analog world to a very digital world. The smartphones were a bit introduced. Some people tried some communicating stuff. You could write a few text things. Messaging was becoming, a huge service. Email came with the revolution of the internet. But then all of a sudden, the internet and the mobile phone merged. And that
yeah.
happened in the beginning of the 2000s. And, the iPhone came in 2007,
2007. Yeah.
2007 in the summer. I was there in New York in the launch. So those things started a total revolution of how networks were being built, but also how the role of the telco in society. It went from, the smartphone went from a cool item to something you can't leave home without. I mean, people say today, you would rather forget your wallet or anything, but if you forget your phone, you're dead. Like you got to
Yeah.
go back. You have to go
Yeah.
home and get it. I
Many
even
times you can't
hear.
get into your car without it now.
Yeah, you even hear, exactly. You can't even do anything, right? And you will
Yeah.
notice when you step into your car because they'll ask you, "Where is your phone?" So
Yes.
in a way, that transformation was there. But if you remember, then because of the explosion of growth in the end of the 90s, there is an aging problem a little bit on the engineering leadership in many operators today,
Mm.
because
Mm.
those were hired during those times. Where the
Mm.
real revolution on digital happened is more beyond 2010 into 2020, 20. A lot of companies digitalized, but operators were slow. And I suspect, without knowing, but I suspect that there is a sort of generation shift problems slightly when it comes to those engineering things. And I don't think it's the people, but I think it's the structures. So the structures are a bit aged. So I would say a startup telco today, you could run a large network with a few hundred people.
Mm.
So why aren't networks run like that? Well, you ask yourself, like you can imagine. And I think, Pranay, as you are serving many telcos with your AI technology. And what you will meet is ideas about how to deploy that. But in current structure, not starting from scratch. And I think, I'm asking you now, that must be part of a frustration, because part of this could be done in a revolutionary way, where you could start from scratch and build this very differently. And I don't know if you meet any of that, but it's typically.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I mean, of course, we're not starting from scratch, right? When we're working with large companies in the space, there is a very large established customer base. There is a set of, technology networks and, CRM systems, operating systems, everything's in place. I think what we are finding is that what are the key ingredients where we see success and we see implementation at speed? I think number one is, of course, CEO and senior management commitment, that they're committed to doing things in a new way because they know that is the right way to do it. And it starts from the CEO, and the senior management is committed to making that happen. I think that's number one. Number two is that people ask, okay, sometimes, and actually nowadays often, what is your AI strategy? And actually, I'd say that actually, no, you'd say, what is your business strategy and how is AI going to, further that business strategy, right? I think that is probably a question that will lead to some better answers. And in that context, being very clear about what are the ways in which we are going to deploy the technology to drive what outcomes. Like you said very correctly in the beginning, it's about driving better customer experience, which could mean, better service experience. It could mean better network experience. It could mean, better cost efficiency for the customers, new products, innovation, and all of that kind of stuff. You said a few other things which really resonated, right? I think transparency, that's really important. Because how do I trust this technology if it's not going to be transparent to me on what are the ways in which decisions have been made? And then where you took the pilot example, I think transparency plus agency. So if you want the people to be in charge of the outcomes, and you say you've got to use this technology, great, make the technology transparent to me, but then give me the agency to make changes where I need to make changes, right? So that. And then I think from a skills perspective, what we're seeing is that there is a lot of interest amongst people in the organization from senior level across to learn new skills. And I think organizations have a real opportunity where they can start to impart these skills. Now, we don't expect that everyone's going to be a AI programmer, but I think it'll be important that people get AI fluent and understand how they can deploy that and how they can use it and start to develop trust in the technology and are able to get rid of the fear of unknown. So we're finding that these are some of the drivers of success here.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I think those, Pranay, are very, very good comments. I didn't mean, I think the comment I made was not in age discriminating way in any way. It's just that the structures get cemented old. And I find tremendous interest in very senior employees in terms of transformation. Maybe some of them even driving it harder than some of the traditional management. So it has nothing to do with age. It's just about interest and really being able to upskill yourself. Totally agree with that. One interesting question, though: how bold are customers of yours to do transformation, though? I mean, you don't want to make an electric horse. As we all know, there's a story about when electrification happened. Do you build a new car that is electric, or do you take a horse wagon and make the electric horse? How bold are they in transformation so that large organizations don't put little AI in this module, that module, that module, that module, that module, and the whole structure is really there?
Yeah, or you're just reimagining the whole thing to say I start from scratch.
Yeah, that's my curiosity, because you meet so many of these tremendous companies out there.
Yeah, look, I mean, it obviously there's a range, right? There's a range that goes from saying that I want to transform my business using AI and let's go as fast as we can, to places where there is just the speed is of a different level, to some other places where people are saying let's reimagine the whole thing. And sometimes even setting up new BUs, like saying, I'm not going to disturb my existing system, let that continue. But I set up something in parallel where I can create a, completely new service line that is, grounds up, that's AI native, as opposed to infusing AI into what was already existing. But what I can say for sure is that across the board, I think nobody's ignoring this, right? I think everyone's trying to figure it out how to get there. Uh, and just on the bold comment, I do think that uh, boldness is required. And I think the people that are willing to be
That's why
bold,
I asked. I
yeah,
believe that, I
yeah, yeah,
believe you have to have that.
you have to have that. And people who are willing to, uh, fail so that they may succeed are more
Yes.
likely to succeed. Yeah.
Totally agree, Pranay. That's my experience too. And the more you experiment, the faster you'll move.
Yes. Yeah.
You just got to be, you just got to go all in on it, and don't do it as a sideshow. Do it as the main show.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Not Just AI. The world of telecommunications is entering one of the most exciting chapters yet, moving beyond 5G and beginning to imagine the possibilities of 6G. As we heard from Pranay Agrawal and Ulf Ewaldsson, this transformation isn't just about faster networks or smarter systems. It's about how AI, especially agentic AI, can make networks more adaptive, predictive, and personal, while redefining what it means to connect people. The conversation reminds us that the future of telecom will be faster, smarter, and more resilient, but most importantly, it'll be built on trust between technology and humanity. Until next time, thanks for joining us on Not Just AI.